Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into a topic that, well, it's been a consistent headline maker in India for decades, really. And it's seen a significant renewed focus recently.
That's right. We're talking about the Uniform Civil Code, or UCC.
Exactly. And for those who follow Indian affairs, you know this is a deeply complex and often fiery debate.
Definitely.
Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this long-standing controversy. What exactly is the UCC? Why does it ignite such passionate arguments across the social spectrum?
Okay, and what are some of the maybe surprising facts or nuances in the sources that help us understand what's really at stake here?
Precisely. We want to help you understand what truly matters in this discussion.
Okay.
So to really dig into this, let's kick off with the fundamentals. At its core, what exactly is the Uniform Civil Code? And which civil laws are we actually talking about here?
That's the perfect place to begin. The Uniform Civil Code is essentially a proposal to create and implement one single set of civil laws.
One set for everyone.
Yes, that would apply to all citizens in India, irrespective of their religion, caste, or tribe.
Okay. And the civil laws part, what does that cover?
Right. So when we talk about these civil laws, we're really focusing on the personal aspects of life, things like marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, and even maintenance.
So family law, basically.
Essentially, yes. These are the personal laws that govern family life on a daily basis.
So it's about making sure everyone lives under the exact same family law.
Okay.
But what's the current system like? Because that's a huge part of why this is such a hot topic, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here is how that contrasts sharply with India's current legal framework. Right now, there isn't one common law for these matters.
So it's a mix.
It's very much a mix. Instead, different religious communities are governed by their own distinct personal laws.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. For instance, Hindus, along with Sikhs, Jains, and Buddhists, they all follow what are known as the Hindu personal laws. On the other hand, Muslims adhere to Sharia-based personal law, a system rooted in Islamic religious principles.
Right.
And then Christians and Parsis, they each have their own separate legal codes as well. So you can immediately see the immense diversity in how these fundamental aspects of life are currently regulated.
Wow, yeah. That's quite a patchwork. And it's not just a contemporary political push, is it? This idea of a uniform civil code actually has, well, deep roots. It's even mentioned in India's foundational document.
It is, yeah. And this is where the constitutional backing comes in. The Indian Constitution, specifically Article 44, which falls under the directive principles of state policy.
Ah, the directive principles. Okay.
Exactly. That article states, the state shall endeavor to secure for the citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India.
Shall endeavor to secure, that's a really interesting phrase, isn't it? It sounds like the Constitution's framers wanted a uniform system, but they didn't make it an immediate mandatory right. Why that distinction?
That's a crucial point. Our sources suggest that the framers definitely envisioned a uniform civil law system, but, they were acutely aware of India's immense diversity.
All those different religions, cultures.
Exactly. It's mosaic of religions, cultures, and traditions. So they deliberately left it as a directive principle, something to strive for over time. They recognized that an abrupt imposition could be incredibly challenging, maybe even damaging, given the nation's pluralism.
Makes sense. And because of that constitutional mandate, proponents of the UCC have some very strong arguments, right?
They do. They often argue it promotes equality and secularism across the nation.
Treating everyone the same under the law.
That's the idea. They also argue that it helps protect women's rights, particularly in communities where existing personal laws might be seen as, discriminatory.
Right.
Ultimately, their view is that it ensures all citizens are treated equally under the same law, which, they frame as a basic principle of any modern democracy.
So on the surface, those arguments for equality and protection sound incredibly compelling. It sounds good, right? But this is where the debate truly ignites. Where's the problem? What are the fundamental reasons these proposals consistently meet such strong opposition?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and deeply complex. For many communities in India, personal laws aren't just legal frameworks. They feel they're inextricably intertwined with their religious identity and faith.
Ah, so it's more than just law, it's identity.
Precisely. So any attempt to change or replace these laws is often seen or perceived as an attack on religious freedom itself, or in some cases, as a move to impose a majoritarian culture on minority groups.
And you see this especially with concerns from specific minority groups, like Muslims.
Yes, that's a prominent example. Many Muslim organizations, for instance, argue that the UCC would directly interfere with Sharia laws in their religious practices.
And those practices have constitutional protection.
They do. Crucially, these practices are constitutionally protected under Article 25, the right to freedom of religion. So there's a direct constitutional clash, in their view.
Yep.
And there's also a significant concern of trust. Minority communities often worry that the UCC might be implemented selectively or perhaps politically, especially when it's pushed by parties perceived to have majoritarian agendas.
That trust deficit seems key.
It's huge.
Huh.
And this raises another important question. What exactly does uniform mean in a country as diverse as India? I mean, even among Hindus, there's a vast array of diverse practices and customs.
Right, it's not monolithic even within the majority.
Not at all. Which suggests that uniform doesn't necessarily mean, one size fits all. And it's not just the larger religious communities either. We also have to consider the profound impact on other groups.
Tribal communities.
Exactly. Tribes and various regional communities often have their own unique customs related to marriage, inheritance, and so on. These might clash significantly with a broad uniform law. It's almost hard to wrap your head around that level of legal diversity existing side by side.
It truly is.
Yep.
So with all this historical context and this ongoing, very heated debate, has any tangible progress actually been made towards a UCC? Has anything actually happened?
Well, yes and no. It's complicated. We do have some state-level examples. Goa, for instance, is often cited.
Ah, yes. The Goa example always comes up.
It does. It's often referenced as a kind of model because it already follows a common civil code, which it inherited from its Portuguese colonial past. So it's a unique case, really.
Okay, so one state with a specific history. What about nationally? Has the Law Commission weighed in?
Yes, the Law Commission of India has studied this issue multiple times, and the most recent conclusion, back in 2018, was quite notable. They actually stated that a UCC was neither necessary nor desirable at that stage.
Really? Neither necessary nor desirable?
Yeah.
That's strong.
It is. Instead, the Commission recommended reform within existing personal laws. The idea was to make them more gender just, rather than imposing a blanket uniform code.
Interesting. So reform from within, not replacement from above.
That was their 2018 recommendation. But what's truly fascinating here is the stark contrast with the present situation.
Because there's a new push now.
Exactly. More recently, there's been a renewed and quite significant political push, particularly from the central government, to bring the UCC back into sharp focus.
And how are they framing it?
This push frames the UCC as essential for national integration and for equality.
But critics see it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Critics often view this recent push as highly politically motivated, especially, given its timing relative to election cycles. And they fear it might end up polarizing communities rather than actually uniting them.
So it highlights how the UCC isn't just a legal proposition.
It's often a politically charged instrument as well, yeah.
That's a strong counter-argument. But from the proponent's view, isn't that renewed push also seen as maybe a sign of a strong government finally taking on a long-pending constitutional directive, fulfilling the framers' vision?
Exactly. And that's part of the narrative, too. Our sources suggest that see it as fulfilling that constitutional vision for a modern, unified India. This is why the debate is so layered, you see. It's about differing interpretations of what the Constitution calls for, what Article 4 really means, and what progress truly looks like for such a diverse nation.
It really comes down to fundamental disagreements on the path forward. So as we look to the future, here's the heart of the debate, really, and something for you, our listeners, to consider. Should India push for complete uniformity in civil laws? Or perhaps should the aim be for equality within diversity?
And this raises some really important questions, doesn't it? Like, would a uniform civil code truly empower marginalized groups, such as women in patriarchal systems, by giving them equal legal footing across the board?
That's the hope of proponents, right?
That's the hope. Or alternatively, would it inadvertently threaten India's inherent pluralism? Would it undermine those constitutionally protected religious freedoms of its diverse communities?
The core tension.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, some experts, including those cited by the Law Commission previously, suggest a more maybe gradual consultative approach.
What would that look like?
Well, instead of a blanket imposition, they propose focusing on reforming individual personal laws first. target the discriminatory aspects within each system.
So it's about targeting the injustice, perhaps, rather than the diversity itself.
That's one way to put it. And crucially, building consensus across communities, trying to get buy-in rather than imposing a single uniform law from the top down.
That sounds challenging, but maybe more sustainable.
Perhaps. This approach emphasizes focusing more on achieving equality and justice in outcomes rather than simply uniformity for its own sake. It's a very different path forward than a mandatory single code.
So will India ever truly have a uniform civil code? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But one thing seems absolutely clear from everything we've discussed.
Its realization, if it ever happens, will require extensive dialogue, immense sensitivity, and probably some serious trust building across all sections of society.
Yeah, that trust issue again.
It keeps coming back.
Mhm.
Because in a country as incredibly diverse as India, law isn't just about rules and regulations on paper, is it?
No, it seems it's profoundly about people, their identities, their histories, and the fundamental values they want to live by.
Exactly.
And that leaves us and you with a provocative thought to mull over. What does true equality look like in a deeply diverse society? Can it ever be fully achieved through a single uniform legal framework? Or does it perhaps require embracing and nurturing that very diversity while still ensuring justice for all within it?
A fundamental question, really.
It is. Something to think about. Until next time on The Deep Dive, stay curious, stay informed.
Thanks for listening.